Now I'd like to recognize some special guests of ours. Francine Newsom-Pfeiffer, the VP of Federal Relations. Pete McDonough, Senior Vice President of External Affairs. Rabbi Mendy Carlbeck of the Rutgers Chabad House. Shalonda Turner, who's the faculty advisor of Rutgers NAACP. Kate Sweeney, one of our very own board members of the Board of Trustees. Dan Harris, who's the president of Middlesex Young Dems. We have Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ben Cifuentes, here with us. And thank you so much for coming. I am going to turn it over to a very, very special student. Her name is Priya, and she is the co-president of Rutgers Global Med.
Welcome to tonight's town hall with Rutgers, hosted by Rutgers and Phil Murphy. My name is Priya Kangasarian, and I'm the co-president of Rutgers Globe Med and co-host of the event today. We are so excited to be here, and we hope you all are as well. When I look around, I see a room unlike any other. Rutgers has always been a university rooted in tradition. As the 8th oldest institution of higher learning in the United States, Rutgers just celebrated its 250th anniversary this month. Woo! Yeah! It's not our colonial roots or history as the birthplace of college football that makes Rutgers a acclaimed university that it is today, but rather the revolutionary students and faculty that make up our campuses. It is here at Rutgers where thousands of students can march for a sanctuary campus, where students and administrators can look critically at our founding members and denounce their slave heritage. It is where research on sexual violence and domestic violence is sent to the White House. Rutgers' revolutionary status is seen in our diverse student body, one that is 58% composed of minorities, has gender parity within the classrooms, hosts students from 63 different countries, is a top 25 university for the LGBT community, is second for veteran accommodations, and houses 70 student organizations for cultural and religious affairs. It is in this community, one that sticks up for their own, that is truly indicative of the diverse nature that we live in today, one that I am very proud to be a part of. With that commitment to diversity and change comes the need to be an active and aware member of the larger political sphere. As a state institution, the future of our school is tied to our governor. Now, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce my dear friend, Jeremy Atier. Good, yeah. She's been a great inspiration to me and many others in this room.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I just want to first off thank a couple organizations that were pivotal in making this event possible. Rutgers Democrats, Rutgers No More, Rutgers NAACP, Rutgers Global Med, College Democrats of New Jersey, the Muslim Public Relations Council, the Middlesex County Democrats Black Caucus and LGBT Caucus, and of course, my team at Rutgers for Hillary, now Rutgers for Phil Murphy. Thank you all for making this possible. Now, to say the least, election night a couple weeks ago was brutal. My boyfriend, Tommy, was right there, and I were actually at the Javits Center in New York City, waiting for Hillary to give her victory speech, waiting for history to be made. And it was made, but not in the way that we had hoped. As those election results were coming in, I tried to stifle my doubts and stay as positive as I could. It wasn't until I saw my boyfriend crying next to me that I started to realize the gravity of what was actually going on. My right to marry the person that I loved was no longer definite. My friends who are people of color, who are women, who are Muslim, who are dreamers, I felt afraid for them. I still feel really afraid for them. If our next president attempts to take us back, we in New Jersey have to be prepared to fight back. Our governor's election, the first major state election, in the country under a President Trump will be the most watched contest in this country next year. We have the opportunity in New Jersey to send a message to progressives that the fight and the road back from a Trump presidency starts right here in the Garden State. It starts right now, and it starts with us. We're very honored to have with us tonight a man who can steer us back in that progressive direction and help unlock our state's full potential. With years of experience, Phil Murphy knows how to grow economies and create jobs. He proudly serves on the board of the NAACP, the world's oldest civil rights organization. In 2009, he accepted President Obama's call to service, and he became the U.S. ambassador to Germany. As the finance chair of the Democratic National Committee that brought control of Congress back to the Democrats and elected our first African-American president, President Barack Obama, this man knows the ways of grassroots party building, and he knows how to use that expertise to fight for opportunity, fairness, and justice. That's exactly what we need in New Jersey right now. Phil and his wife Tammy currently live in Middletown with their 4 children. He is a true progressive running for governor, and we're so thrilled to welcome him to Rutgers tonight. Please, everyone, help me warmly welcome Ambassador and gubernatorial candidate, Phil Murphy.
Good evening. This mic is hot. A little too loud, I think. Where's my man Brett?
Right here, right here.
Hey, pal, how are you? A little bit too much? You guys okay? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. What a treat to be here. I'm told Middlesex County freeholder Charlie Kenny's in the house. Is that true? Charlie, I see you in the back, man. You can't hide. Nice to see you. I am incredibly honored to be here. And as I was preparing to come here tonight, tonight's going to be a pretty serious night, actually, in many respects, but a night I hope you will agree with me that is filled also with opportunity and optimism. Because if all we do is cry in our beer, and I'm a Murphy, I have no problem with the beer, but if all we do is cry in our beer, we won't do what we need to do to get back what is rightfully ours. Is that fair? So we have to not only face some brutal facts, but we also have to keep our optimism. We have to keep our eye on the prize. We've got to make sure we're putting one foot in front of the other to get back, as I say, the country that we love so much and the state that we love so much. But I will warn you up front, it's a school night, but this is the first town hall we've done since Donald Trump apparently, and I use those words, apparently won the presidency. And so there's lots to talk about. I want to thank Priya and Jeremy for their extraordinary words and for being so impressive, not just tonight, but every night. So thank you guys very much for that. Thank Gonzalez, who's Rutgers' own, who is on our squad. Members of the board, members of faculty, administration, all the organizations that are here supporting tonight, whether they be Rutgers specific, whether they be Middlesex County, New Brunswick, all of the above. Thank you very much for supporting us tonight. A couple of questions before I start. By the way, we have to have some fun. Is that okay too? Do you mind? So I've got a little bit of a music trivia game I want to play with you at some point. Can someone remind me of that? Could you all please remind me of that? Because if we don't stay happy, is this like it is in Georgia? I love you, man. 40 miles south of Atlanta, Georgia, right here, man. Jordan, nice to have you, buddy. So don't let me forget the music, okay? Is that fair? Don't be so enthused. Come on, man. Okay, question. Raise your hand if you're a student. Okay, I got that covered. Keep your hand up if you're an undergraduate. Okay, bring them down. How about graduate students? Not many. You're in the back. They didn't give you seats. Anybody else? What are you studying? All right. Same. Religion. All right. Okay, back to the undergrads. Raise your hand if you're the class of 2017. Keep up, keep up. Let's hear it from the seniors here. 2018. I was about to say 2016. I realized, man, I need a math lesson. 2018. Keep up. Okay. Juniors in the house. Okay. 2019. Okay, pretty good representation here, sophomore class. And the freshman, 2020. Okay, let's hear it from juniors. Raise your hand, Jordan is, raise your hand if you are not from the great state of New Jersey. Okay, where are you from? Chicago. That took you about, you were thinking about. Keep your hands up. India, God bless you, where? Bangalore, okay.
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
Florida. Missouri.
Where in Florida? All right. Philly. Puerto Rico. I love that.
Philly.
Philly, okay. So we got a lot of Jersey folks here. Yeah. Is that fair to say? Okay. Nothing wrong with that, fellow. But we welcome our out-of-state or out-of-country brothers and sisters as well. Is that fair? Well, let's get them up here. Really happy to have you here tonight. There are some people here, and I'm so humbled by this, who are already big supporters of what we're up to. For that, I say thank you. There are many of you here tonight who are kicking the tires, and for that, we welcome that. We say thank you that you take the time to kick the tires. Just remember our website, Murphy4NJ.com. This is how you find us over here, Murphy4NJ.com. Couple of housekeeping items. We got some white cards. Are they still the same white cards we always used to have? Same white cards. If you got a question, could you fill out this out? It helps us in a couple of respects. One, if we get 10 questions on college affordability, we can bunch them and ask the one that encompasses as many of those as possible. Or alternatively, if we don't get to your question and we want to know how to find you, you can tell us how to find you. Is that fair? So that would be a huge point. We're also streaming live on Facebook. So the camera is right here. Hello, folks. Welcome to our Facebook friends. Honored to have you with us. The reason I say that is because we want to make sure if you ask a question, wait for us to give you a microphone so that folks who are watching it on Facebook can hear. Is that fair? Okay. Look, I want to cover a couple of different topics before we throw it open. I want to start at the end of the story, which is the state of the race right now, and the state of the race in the context of what happened 22 days ago. Then I want to tell you a minute about me, although Jeremy did a very good job of giving you a little bit of a teaser of who I am. Not much more to say. In fact, you know more about me than I do. A little frightening, I have to say. And then give you a couple of thoughts about what I think we need in New Jersey, and then throw it over. Is that fair? We'll try to buzz through that. So I am a declared candidate, Democrat, proud Democrat for governor of the state of New Jersey. We declared on May 16th of this year. So that was pretty early. You should know, and this is really important, in particular in the context of what happened 22 days ago. There are only 2 governor's races in the United States of America next year. The Commonwealth of Virginia and the great state of New Jersey. In both cases, the seat is open. It's always open in Virginia because it's a 1-term limit in Virginia for the governor. That's a Democratic seat at the moment. It'll be a pitched battle to keep it that way. Let's hope it stays that way. You may have noted that Chris Christie, our governor, is term limited in New Jersey. I know there are a lot of broken hearts among Democrats, and probably among many Republicans, I have to say as well. So New Jersey is also an open seat. Our primary is in June, and the general election is in November. Okay, everyone got that? So we came out early. Very happy we came out early. We are honored to be, and by the way, we started right where we are tonight, which is we're the same on November 30th, 2016 as we were on May 16, 2016, and that is the outsiders running against the failed special interest politics in New Jersey, the politics that have failed us. I am a proud resident of the state, but I'm also proud to say I'm coming in with a different perspective. We're coming in not part of the usual suspects, not part of the same old, same old. hopefully with a different, fresh perspective that matches up well with what we need in this state right now. That's a decision you all have to make. That's a decision we made to get in this race with humility. So that is where we were, and that is where we are. Notwithstanding the fact we've had a nice little run here, we've had a bunch of organizations support us and endorse us. That's all well and good, but we're right where we started. We are the outsiders. We're taking it to the streets. People said, what's the word that you used to describe your campaign? I had to pick from a few, but the word I chose to use was hyper-retail. We are in rooms like this a lot more often than we're not. I'll give you an example. Tomorrow night we're doing a telephonic town hall. Let's hear for Jenny Davis, who's in the house. Brett Ross is also with us. Brett, nice to have you. We'll be together tomorrow night. We'll be doing a telephone town hall. We'll be going out to a whole lot of folks, and we'll get between 10 and 15,000 people on the phone. People who are really frustrated, they're sick and tired with our state, in the state it's in, who believe we can have a better New Jersey, and now believe, by the way, that we need to get our America back on top of that. So there's the enormous thirst for a fresh turn of the page, a fresh set of skills, a fresh perspective. And that's the basis upon which we started this campaign, and notwithstanding some early success, that's the basis upon which we will continue this campaign. Good news for me, and this is a democracy, we're not the only guy out there. There are other folks running, both as Democrats and Republicans. And let me tell you something, I welcome that. That's a good thing. But the state, given the state of New Jersey at the moment, given the state of crisis that it is in, and the desperate need for new leadership, the one thing that I know that we owe our citizens is an honest, fair, open, transparent, level playing field debate. So I welcome the competition on both sides of the aisle, and let's let the best person ultimately get and achieve this success. So we already had an important race, and then 22 days ago, the world and our country changed. The stakes got a lot higher. We're not only the only two governor's races up in 2017, but we will be the two states first up in the Trump presidency. And that means the weight is even heavier and more significant. And we're probably going to come back to this, whether I talk about it or whether you ask about it, but this is a time to be really, really vigilant. You know, decisions get made, and I'm speaking to the students here, decisions and policies get made when you're young in life, and you end up living with them, in many cases, for the rest of your life, in one way or another. You know, I was born in 1957, so I'm 59 years old. I was too young for it, but decisions that were made to go to war in the 1960s led to the Vietnam War, led to an enormous amount of sacrifice, heroic sacrifice, and huge fractures in our country. The Watergate fallout in the 70s and the implications for Congress and then the White House. The Reagan White House of anti-administration, anti-big government. We're still living with that, folks, today. Ronald Reagan got elected 36 years ago this month. And you all weren't even born when he got elected. You weren't even close to being born. But you're still living with that these 36 years later. So stuff that's happening now, don't ever let it, and I think the fact you're in this room, you get this, but don't ever let anyone around you think this is abstract stuff. We can easily get by this. We can easily deal with this. I'll stay with Reagan. I remember the morning after he got elected. I was 23 years old. Beat Jimmy Carter, the incumbent president. I thought, you know what? If we are vigilant, if we stick to our guns, if we stand for what we believe in, we'll get this thing back. Well, I was kind of half right. We didn't get it back for 12 years. I remember the several weeks where Al Gore and George W. Bush were heaving it out in the year 2000, and Bush won. He really didn't win. As Al Gore used to say in politics, You win some, you lose some, and then there's that pesky third category, which we're dealing with again in this election with Hillary Clinton having won, I believe, a margin of at least 2 million votes more than Donald Trump. But that was another 8 years. So I would say to you, what we need to do as a national matter, I thought the order of events, by the way, would be, we would first as a nation elect to extend the Obama legacy in the person of Hillary Clinton. You'd get that third term. And then we'd go out and get us a new governor, God willing, a Democrat, in the state of New Jersey. Unfortunately, that third term didn't work out. And that, by the way, they rarely do work out. And so now we're going to have to reverse this and go out and get us, take our state back first, and then go out and take our country back. And don't make light of trying to knock off an incumbent after 4 years. I'll just say that to you right now. He's not even sworn in yet. That will not be easy. So we have to be collectively at our very best in order for that to happen. At our very best. Again, let's get New Jersey back. Let's get that back into the right hands with a leader who stands for the right things and cares about all the people in the state, not just himself or a few others around him. And then let's be very vigilant and hold our ground and know exactly how we're going to go at it and get the White House back and get our country back. And I love what was said about standing up right now. Beginning, you all have already shown it. Rutgers it leads the way in so many respects, not just in New Jersey, but nationally. But standing up on behalf of the folks that Donald Trump would like to see leave, or like to see pretend they weren't even ever here. And if you follow me, you've heard me say, listen, if they're going to start a registry for Muslims, I want to be on that registry. I want to have my name on it with pride. I've lived in Germany twice as a private citizen, as the United States ambassador in Germany. They tried registering people in Germany based on religion, and you know how that turned out. We cannot allow this to go one step further. And what we found out collectively as a mankind, we thought you could catch up to that. You cannot catch up to that. You've got to nip it in the bud at the very first step. And let's never forget that lesson in history. So whether it's building walls or registering folks based on religion or deportations or putting forth folks to be nominated for cabinet positions that frankly are in some cases flat out racists. Folks who want to deny millions the health care they've only recently gotten over the past several years. Folks who promote a right-wing agenda. Folks who want to destroy public education as we know it in our country. You pick the battle. We're going to have to be armed and go into battle on all. Now, it was mentioned that I'm a national board member of the NAACP, one of the great American organizations. I'm there because of my friendship with the late Julian Bond. And sadly, Julian passed a year ago, August. The morning after Trump apparently, and I want to continue to use that word, apparently won the election, Julian's widow, who's a dear friend, sent me a note, and this is a comment that I think is relevant for us here tonight and for the next several years. She said, don't forget what Julian used to say, stop agonizing and start organizing. Now, that's a very good message for all of us to remember. I think we have to get through the mourning period as fast as we can and figure out what we're going to do about it. And again, I want to warn us all, it's really hard to take the White House back after 4 years, so we should not underestimate. As crazy as we might think this person is, we cannot underestimate the job before us. Is that fair? Okay, I want to tell you a little bit more about me and what we're up to. Take my coat off. A little bit of element here. Apologies. Everybody good? Please don't forget the music. Can someone remind me of that? You promise? Somebody? John? Help me out? Okay. I just real quick on me, because we got a lot of ground to cover. I was born in Boston, so please don't hold that against me. Grew up Middle class on a good day. I think others would call it working poor. My dad didn't get out of high school. My mom did. She made sure we went to college. He made sure we cared about civic responsibility, politics. I'm a proud public school product. Went to Harvard College on scholarship and loans, which I feel like I was paying off as I was walking in here. Something I suspect we all have in common. More on that in a moment. I'm not taking off anymore, mate. I'm tired of it. Don't want anyone to get too fritzed. They're sitting on the edge of their chair. I got a graduate degree at the University of Pennsylvania in the great city of Philadelphia. Worked in financial services for 20 years as the most unlikely banker you've ever met in your whole life. I promise you, I had no banking role models in my life. How I ended up there, I still wonder. Worked in New York, Germany, which matters later in life, Asia. Spent a lot of time in India on business. And then back in New York, left that business about 13 years ago. At the end of that time, I got involved as a Democrat beyond just voting. I was a little mad at myself that I was a regular voter, but I didn't do much else. So whether it was Democratic Party stuff or philanthropic or other things, I started getting involved at the end of my business career. And then when I left that career, that stuff became my life. So I became, as Jeremy said, the National Finance Chair for the Democratic National Committee, alongside my man, who I think would be a brilliant leader of our party right now. I know at a minimum we need a full-time chair for the Democratic National Committee. That's an incredibly important step we have to take in February. But I want all of you to give it up for my friend, the once and future Chair, Howard Dean. Let's get it. That really put our party's infrastructure back in business, and that's exactly what we need right now. I don't know if it's going to be him, but whoever it is, they have to be a full-time 50-state strategy chair. We need the help a lot less in a place like New Jersey than we do elsewhere. But God knows this election show, we need infrastructure help in our party. Almost no matter how good the candidate is, if you don't have the right infrastructure, you ain't going to win elections, particularly close ones. We need that desperately. I went on one of the boards now, the National Operating Board of the NAACP, as mentioned. I chaired, for those of you, any from Monmouth County, any Monmouth County folks here? Okay, let's hear from Monmouth County. My wife Tammy, as Jeremy also said, we have 4 children, 19, 17, 15, 13, 4 teenagers. Please keep us in your prayers. So we are, Monmouth County folks, chaired the board of 180 Turning Lives Around, one of the premier women's shelters, I think, in the state of New Jersey. My wife and I started a teen helpline. I'm not patting myself on the back. I want to give you a quick sense of who I am. Teen helpline called Second Floor, which is statewide. I chaired the original commission on pension and health care benefits for public sector employees in this state, something that matters a lot here at Rutgers. Started a teen helpline, I mentioned that, we got that. Chaired another commission on public education in the 21st century for America. Became the United States ambassador, as was mentioned, to the Federal Republic of Germany under Barack Obama, a man to whom history, in my humble opinion, will be very, very, very kind. Came back to Monmouth County about 3+ years ago. We never left, we kept our house. We came back, we realized we were coming back, we got our kids organized, and we were faced with something that is the reason we're probably here tonight. And that is a very popular governor 3 years ago. You can look it up 3 years ago today. And a body of work that he had produced, which was incredibly underwhelming. It's the economy stupid school of thought, meaning that leaders in politics are popular if the economy is booming. This is one of the biggest anomalies I've ever been associated with. A very popular governor, and an economy was the exact opposite of booming. And that one option, by the way, that gap has closed, and it has not closed because the economy is now booming. This is now a very unpopular governor and an economy that is still lagging in almost every respect. As recently, I give you one data point, you only need one. In September of this year, not 3 years ago, of this year, the government put out median household income for the year 2015, and the good news is the United States had a record up year. That's really good news. New Jersey finished 50 out of 50. 50 out of 50. And that, unfortunately, is a fact. I'm not a Debbie Downer, but I am of the opinion that while we're all entitled to our own opinion, we're not entitled to our own facts, and that's a fact. And so that's what triggered us to begin the long road that brought us toward announcing and declaring our candidacy. We kicked the tires long and hard for over 2 years. We also started a couple of organizations focused on strengthening the economy, doing in our own small way what we could do to get this economy on its feet. And I want to, in particular, point out a program we started because it's got a big Rutgers shout out to it. We started a program, we being my wife and I, with the Helberg Center here at Rutgers, focused on long-term unemployed. This is a real scourge for our state. We have the second or third largest cohort of folks who are out of work for more than 6 months as a percentage of everybody who's out of work. We're number like 2 or 3 in the country. It's among many other things that we lead in and we'd love to lag in. And these folks tend to be older and they tend to be lost. And they've been part of industries that have sort of moved out lock, stock, and barrel out of the state. And they're lost and they don't know how to find a job. So this joint venture is focused on getting them a job. And so that's one step we took before, and frankly unrelated to whether or not we were ever going to run for dog catcher or not. But that's something that's up and running, and Rutgers deserves a big shout out, in particular the Helberg Center, because it's really helping. It's now helping almost 2,000 people with volunteer coaches. People are actually getting jobs. It's doing what it was intended to do. You can't guarantee someone's going to get a job, but you can put them in the best shape possible to go out and compete in today's marketplace, and it's doing the Lord's work in that respect. I knew he was coming. I didn't see him. Where is he? I see him right now. Freeholder Kenny Armour is here. I couldn't find you. I saw Charlie. I couldn't find you, Ken, so I apologize for that. So I mentioned we declared on May 16th. The last thing I want to just hit with you real quick is to give you a sense of why we decided, after looking in the mirror, that we were qualified, in our humble opinion, in my humble opinion, to ask you for your support to be the next governor of the state. Because you ought to know, I think you ought to know what I asked myself and we asked ourselves. Maybe they're the same questions you've got. And maybe you've got your own questions, and we'll get to all the above. And I think that's the hardest part. I don't think it's hard coming up with what's wrong with New Jersey. It's a little harder coming up with what the, by the way, Freeholder Brendan Gill is here, who was our campaign manager. Even though you're literally one person away from Kenny and 2 from Charlie. I don't know why I missed that.
Freeholders stick together.
Exactly. I appreciate that. That's Freeholder Corner. Again, we know unfortunately the list of what's challenged in the state is long and growing. We could have our probably just different opinions on what your plans would be to deal with those problems. But the hardest part for me was to say, listen, if this is what New Jersey needs, this is who I am, how seamless is that match? Because I don't think we can take our chances on, this is not an A- election. We got to make sure this is pass-fail. We got the right guy or gal who's going to be the next governor. And so that's the hardest part for me, to look in the mirror and say, listen, how's the match, Murphy? How well do I match the need or the opportunity? And the questions I asked myself sort of circled around a 3-legged stool. Number 1, what kind of a leader am I? And what kind of a leader do we need? Number 2, what do I stand for? And what is New Jersey? Where's the heartbeat and soul of New Jersey? And thirdly, and I think probably most importantly, what skills do I bring to bear upon an economy which is failing? And I say that because I don't believe if we don't get the economy right, I don't believe we get New Jersey right. We won't have the money that we need to pay for the programs for the folks who need government the most unless we get this economy moving. And moving in a way that's the right way, not just moving in any way. As it relates to what kind of a leader I am, my first question I asked myself was, what kind of a leader is Chris Christie? Right? He's an us versus them leader. There's a reason why he supports Donald Trump. They see things the same way. They see things along lines, dividing lines between pieces and sections of society, constantly pitting us against them. And to what end? And by the way, including a fair amount of name calling, whether it's a public school teacher or a policeman or anybody who might disagree with me. That's not the school of leadership that I was born in. I'm born in the inclusive, under the inclusive star, where you try to find common ground, even when you're disagreeing with each other. Just because you're trying to find common ground, does that mean you won't disagree? Heck no, we'll disagree. I guarantee you that's the case. The question is, what are we going to do when we disagree? We're going to do it with respect. Will we still have that energy and passion to find the common ground? I'm a big sports fan. Will we be like the managers who have it out in the locker room or in the newspaper? Count me, I'll be in the locker room. Roll up the sleeves, we'll be at one table, and we're going to work things out because we have big things to work out. Let there be no doubt about it. Second question I mentioned, so that second leg of the stool is, what do you stand for? And again, I could spend a lot of time telling you what he stands for, but I look at things that we used to be really good at that we've gotten away from. I feel like the state's been hijacked by somebody to fit his own personal narrative in the context of sort of a right-wing Republican presidential election process. So what happened to the state that was a leader in environmental policy? What happened to the state that funded fully women's health? What happened to the state that used to be out ahead of lead paint remediation and lead remediation programs? How about the state that used to regularly pass common sense gun safety laws? The state that claimed that it wanted to comprehensively reform the criminal justice system. The state that used to put a lot more money into higher education than it does today. That used to wear that as a badge of honor. You all know the recession we went through. A lot of states cut money from higher ed in that recession. There were very few who were still doing it, and we're one of them. And that's coming out of your backs. And I think importantly, it's coming out in the broader society, in the broader economy. If you look at the states that are investing aggressively in higher education, you'll walk away with a couple of reactions. One is, nothing's terribly affordable these days, but at least they're more affordable, when there's a better balance between what the state's ponying up and what you are ponying up. But there's another, maybe not as immediately obvious reality, but a big reality is that if institutions of higher education are invested in particular in, and I'm not ignoring other fields, but I'm going to use this as an example, in the STEM fields, the payoff in the broader economy and society is overwhelming. It's like a 7-to-1 payoff for every dollar you put into R&D in higher education. I give Rutgers enormous credit in the context of the hand that been dealt over the past number of years. Enormous credit, given all the achievements and all the successes. But you folks need a governor. We say a governor has our back. That doesn't apply to any element, any group in our society more than it does to folks who either want to go to college or who are in college, or who are now graduated with a debt burden that puts them behind a giant 8-ball when in fact they ought to be on their front foot in the most productive years of their lives. And that's one of the things we have to sort of turn on its head. And I will tell you, I am committed. I won't have all the answers, but I got to tell you one thing. We have got to turn that one on its head. We've got to make sure that we make college affordable again for everybody who wants to go to college in this state, period, full stop. That's got to be part of the answer. And that's not what we have at the moment. I mentioned the other piece is economic understanding how you grow an economy in the right way. Just think about where we are at the moment. If you draw sort of a quadrant in your mind's eye, and above the line you've got an economy that's growing, and below the line one that isn't. And on this side it's an economy that's fair, and on this side it's unfair. Our state is down in that box that you don't want to be in. It is flat as a pancake and profoundly unfair. And so we got to both, and this has big Rutgers and higher ed implications as well. We both got to grow the economy, grow the pie, and make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. And those aren't necessarily separate and apart agenda items. They feed on each other. But it's imperative that we do both. We cannot do one without the other. I think we grow the economy on the back of two engines. Reclaiming our space in the STEM economy, in the innovation economy, investing in higher ed in a big way. I say this, by the way, I don't want to leave the A in STEAM out either. I'm a former actor. I'm a thespian. So I have to make sure you all know that. I'm not an engineer, but I believe there's an enormous payoff in investing in higher ed, in particular the STEM piece, and reclaiming that space. For those of you from New Jersey, it's the overwhelming amount of us tonight, you know this, that we were Silicon Valley before there was a Silicon Valley, with Bell Labs and Sarnoff Labs and AT&T and bio and life sciences and healthcare. We've let that space slip. There's no reason we can't get it back. Boston right now, where I grew up, Boston's got that working. And again, the elements, the ecosystem that is built there, there's no reason why we can't build it here. Higher ed, communities that millennials want to live in, 21st century infrastructure, great public schools, all the stuff that we know is within our grasp. The other big engine is the infrastructure economy. Take complete advantage of our location and do it responsibly. We're the densest state in the nation. That means we got to take advantage of our location very carefully. There's no reason we can't with the right leadership. I'm confident we will with the right leadership, but it has to be done carefully. We have a location that 49 other states would die to have. And so our job is to take maximum advantage of that. And we're doing neither. We're not growing the innovation economy. We're not taking advantage of our location. We got to do both. If we do, we start growing again. I think we start growing again in a big way. And I said we got to make it fair. We got to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. That's minimum wage. It's earned sick leave. It's child-dependent care tax credits. It's making college more affordable. It's equal pay for equal work. Right? Listen, it's the year 2016 in New Jersey. You hate to accept it, but these are the facts. A woman in the state on average earns 80% of what a guy makes for the same work. That's a fact. And if you're an African American woman or a Latina, you make less than 60%. That's unacceptable. There's a law that just got passed. I hate to keep saying this because I think we can be better and will be better than Massachusetts, but they just passed a law up there which is so simple. Its elegance is in its simplicity. And I'm not sure you're following this, but if we pass this in New Jersey, and I'd sign this bill in a minute, we'd instantly change the whole equal pay piece. And that's the following. It's now against the law to ask anyone what their salary is in their current job when they're interviewing for a new job. It's against the law. Because research showed if you were a woman or a person of color, or both, you were in a hole that you never got out of. It was self-perpetuating. That is now almost overnight stopped in Massachusetts. And that's the world you're going to walk into, whether you're class of 2017, 18, 19, 20. We got to make sure we got jobs, the right kind of jobs. We lead the nation in exporting high school seniors. We lead the nation in exporting college seniors. We got to find the jobs, the communities, the pay, the equity, the passion, the buzz. This is a place, man, this place is rocking. I want to stay here. I want to come here, and I want to stay here. That's what we've got. That's the rhythm we've got to get in the state. And there's no reason we cannot get that. With the right leadership, the right priorities, who cares about the next generation, there's no reason why we can't claim that space. I'm a huge optimist. You look around this room, overwhelmingly New Jersey, and some very fine folks who have come here to go to school. This is a room filled with extraordinary promise. I've never seen anything in my life that's, any place or anything actually, that's squandered so much of its natural advantages as we're right now doing as a state. And there's no reason why we can't get that back. All of our issues and challenges are man-made. That means the good news is the solutions to those challenges are also man-made, with the right leadership, the right priorities. I get asked, I told you, we announced our campaign in May. I got asked the question, first interview, first question, why you? And I'll leave you with this thought. I said, and I say this with humility, I make 20 mistakes a day, so trust me, I'm no hero. But I did say this, and this applies so particularly to this room tonight. And that is this. I said, and I quote myself, because I'll be the governor who makes decisions at every turn based on what's best for the next generation in this state and not what's best for my next election. Period. You have my word, that's the basis. We will govern this state. We may not always agree, but I would ask you with great humility, please put me in the category of the right people going into government for the right reasons, trying to do the right things. That even when we disagree, you'll say, you know what? This guy, there's no backstory, there's no drama, he's not part of the machine, he's not part of the problems we've got. He's trying to do the right thing. I give him credit for that. Please throw me in that category. I will be honored by it. I'm so honored to be here tonight. You are our promise. It is on your backs, and I say that in the best sense, that we ride our way back to the top. I was almost going to say that we make New Jersey great again. I can't believe I almost said that. But you know what I mean. I'm not going to quote, he who shall not be named. And don't forget what I said about the mission at hand here. I'm going to stop where I started. We've got to win New Jersey back together. We must do that. That will now be the first step. But we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have got to stand and be vigilant and organize and make sure we have got a plan in place that is well-reasoned, well-executed to not just get New Jersey back first, but get the United States of America back. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. A little housekeeping while we let Phil take a drink of water. For those of you who submitted questions, we have selected a few that represent a broad range of topics. If your question does not get answered specifically tonight, as long as you put your name or your email or an address on your card, we will answer it. If you did not put your name or your email on your card, I don't know who you are and I don't know how to answer your question. So, if you submitted a question tonight that does not get answered, and you didn't give us your contact information, on your way out, find one of our staff, rewrite the question, put on the email at least so we can email you an answer, because otherwise we can't do it. So don't be mad at us if we don't get to your question. We will answer them, and we hope that you all enjoy this. Thanks.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, I got Megan Kane from Livingston, New Jersey. Where are you, Megan? Let's go, Megan. Let's go. Megan, please stand. You get a microphone. Let's hear from Megan from Livingston. You got a question about, a very serious question about sexual assault. You want to read it, or how do you want to do that?
Sure. Okay. So a few years ago, the White House reached out to Rutgers University to help compile research for their It's On Us task force.
Yep.
So the research conducted showed that at Rutgers, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 77 men will be subjected to acts of sexual violence in their time as an undergraduate at Rutgers University. So I was wondering what you will do as governor to help combat sexual violence and support survivors, particularly on college campuses.
May I ask you a question before I answer? How would you rate, what class are you in? Sophomore. How would you, or anyone real quick, how would you rate, because my sense is Rutgers is viewed to be one of the institutions of higher education that's done a very good job tackling a very complicated, challenging, vexing societal problem. But how do you see it?
I think that they have done a great job, but I think that there's always a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah. Would people generally share that opinion?
I think Rutgers in general does good work, but recently Rutgers and more representatives went to the New Jersey Task Force on Sexual Assault meeting, and it's a lot of the other universities within our state that don't have the state support that we have here.
Right.
And I think it's really for that we ask these questions.
Right. That's a fair point. Anyone else want to? Wait, someone said no over here. Was that? I can't remember. Was that Priya or no? I'm not sure I can throw you the microphone, sir. But is it the same topic? What's your name? Victor. Hey, Victor, you got a time right there. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to add that here at Rutgers, New Brunswick, we have great support, but actually in Rutgers, Kansas, Rutgers, Newark, they can have a lot more better support. Like here in Rutgers, New Brunswick, anyone who experiences any type of sexual assault can attend BPDA, but that same services aren't available in person in Camden and Newark as well. So Rutgers, New Brunswick is really the subset that's leading the way in New Jersey.
Great. Well, listen, these are all great. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the follow-on comments. Real quick, and I'll try to be shorter in my answers so we can get to more questions. Number one, it is my sense that Rutgers is a leader as a general matter, but you brought up two very good points. That part of the reason why a lot of schools meet is that Rutgers can help the other schools get better, and not all campuses, I'm not sure what happened to Victor. There you go. Not all campuses at Rutgers are at the same level of quality of service. So I have to accept that, and those are all some of my very fair points. Listen, I'm married to a woman who was assaulted and is now on the board of her university. She's on the board of visitors at the University of Virginia. So this is something near and dear to our family. And I've got a senior in high school daughter who's applying to colleges, and I've got a son who's in college. And so we live in a very real way with this question. I do think, I have to say, it comes back to leadership. I don't want to put everything, all my marbles, on who the president is or who the governor is, but it still takes my breath away that we elected the guy who was caught on tape saying what he said, okay? And that is as far from being right in society to both not just be there for victims of assault. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned, I chair the board of what I think is one of the foremost women's shelters in the state of New Jersey, 180 Turning Lives Around. Those organizations largely exist, largely because the funding isn't there. They exist to be there at the point of attack when a woman is, not always women, but largely when women are assaulted. So it's reactive. So you've got that piece, which there's never enough money to go around, right? Either from the federal government or from the state government. And given the leaders we have at the moment, we probably shouldn't be, or we will have, we probably shouldn't be surprised by that. Some of this is flat out money. There's rarely money, which is why I'm impressed by Rutgers. It sounds like a particular Rutgers, New Brunswick. There's rarely money to do the preventative stuff, the educational stuff. So in most cases where it's working and things are actually at a reasonable place, it's good on defense, lousy on offense. And so I'd love to be a leader who says, you know what, we need to be best in class in both. That we need to be there at the darkest moments, at the point of attack, at the moment of attack. But even maybe more importantly, that we did the work, the education, the groundwork that prevented 80% of what otherwise would have happened. So please count me in somebody who cares about this, both at a very personal level and at a societal level deeply. So let's hear from Megan. Great question. She got like some shout-outs, some yelps. I got Ryan, is it Berger? From which Brunswick? New Brunswick. Where are you, Ryan? Come on, man. How are you, pal?
Great to be here.
You a student?
Yes, I am.
Great to be. You sound like Jimmy Fallon. Great to be here. We'll be right back. Our guest tonight. Okay, you got a question?
I actually do host a radio show here.
I love it.
Radio.
I want to listen. It'll be the highlight of my year if I could appear on your radio show.
Absolutely. I'd love to have
Okay, Ryan. I love that. You got a question on infrastructure. Do you want me to give it to you, or you already? You did.
Yes. So back in high school, I don't do as much now. Back in high school, I took the train every day.
What year are you now?
junior. What high school were you in? St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City.
Yep.
Yeah, so I take the train from Peterborough down to Hoboken Terminal, and the train, the one I took from Valley Line, I took every day is the one that crashed in Hoboken Terminal. And I want to know, I mean, before that, I've taken the train for so long, I know the issues that we've had. I know a lot. During Sandy, we lost like half of our trains that weren't moving. I want to know what you can do to improve transit infrastructure.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, sir. Great high school, and you've chosen a great college as well. Listen, as I said, this is not just any state. This is a state that sort of lives and dies by its infrastructure, whether it's roads, rails, bridges, tunnels. Frankly, we spend most of our time talking about that. We ought to be also spending a fair amount of time, I'll come back to your question, on things like what can we do to prevent damage, God forbid if we get the next superstorm Sandy. You know, one of the smart things we could do, and I shout out to Don Zimmer of Hoboken, the mayor, who's got what I would call a Dutch solution, taken from the Dutch because their whole country's basically underwater. So they're world class in figuring this kind of infrastructure out. But she needs money from the state and the federal government. So there's that kind of infrastructure as well. The stories, I think particularly since that crash, I had to tell you before that, obviously, with the interruptions in service, I mean, how many people have heard the following? It's probably you as well. Every time two of our kids run on the trains today, fares going up, service going down. And you could fill in the blank in New Jersey, that sort of, and you can't lay all this on one administration, in fairness either. A lot of this stuff's been a long time building. But the price for X keeps going up, and the Y I get back for X is going down. And New Jersey Transit is a great example. Or the tolls that we pay to cross the Hudson River in exchange for the bridges and roads that we drive on. And then in particular, since this crash, this tragedy, it's come out, the deficiency in safety, the lack of oversight, the lack of pure investment. We have to get into, Paul Krugman, who I'm a big fan of, wrote an article, I think about 2 or 3 months ago now, where he made the following observation, that America faced a dual reality that it had never faced before, which was crumbling, decrepit infrastructure on the one hand, and all-time low interest rates on the other hand. Now, the former has not changed. Interest rates have come up a little bit, but they're still pretty darn low. Count me in the 40-yard pass, sell the 50 or 100-year bond, and put all that money into infrastructure of all kinds, including an NJ Transit, and start sort of, you get what you put in, right? And we're putting nothing in and we're getting back. It shouldn't surprise us. We've got to turn that around. Again, we're a state. This is not optional. This is a state that lives on the backs of institutions like NJ Transit. It's not one of these, we'll get to it when we can. We live or die, in this case, unfortunately, literally, on the back. Let's hear it again for Ryan. I got Ariana. Sumad Grande. Is it Yusuf Zai? How'd I do, Ariana? Are you here? Okay. I'll give you the question anyway. May I give the question anyway, Jenny? With your blessing? It's on education. Ariana is from Monroe Township, which is a community I know very well, here in Middlesex County. As a high school senior, I've seen firsthand the effects of Common Core standards and PARCC testing in my own high school. What are your plans for improving education, primary, secondary, schooling, to make NJ students more competitive on a global scale? My Lord, we could be here for the rest of the week on that one. Let me start with and I'll be brief in this one. Good news is, we have among the best public schools in the United States of America. That's the good news. Now let me, unfortunately, walk us through some more of the challenging news. We have among the widest dispersions of experience in public education in America, between those that are doing, in communities that are doing really well and those communities that are up against it. And that's unacceptable. We have underfunded the only school formula ever to be blessed by the Supreme Court of the state over the past now 8 years by a total, Matt Plotkin, $8 billion. So we've underfunded the school funding formula by about $8 billion. That's about the same amount of money. It's a little bit higher, but it's about the same amount of money. This is probably a coincidence, but it's worth noting that we've given out in tax incentives for companies to either stay here or come here, which is a very expensive way to run the state. And I would argue if we're not investing in our kids, who are we as a government? Ariana asked about park testing. I'm not a high-stakes testing fan. As I mentioned, I got 4 teenagers. I want to make sure they get tested and assessed. I get that part. But I'm not a fan of these. You take a long time to get ready for this thing, and you may have a bad day, and you have to live with that. That's the test you have to take in order to graduate from high school. And you may have had a bad day. And by the way, you don't get feedback back for like a year. I think it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. So I'm a big believer in public education. I'm a big believer in funding public education. I'm a believer in smart, sensible testing that's real time, that's not teaching to the test, but actually teaches to what you're trying to teach our kids, what we're trying to learn. I think if we did all that, we'd be in a better place. We're in a pretty good place, but we could be in a better place. In particular, shrinking that dispersion, which is unacceptably wide. Is that fair? Let's hear it up for Ariana. I got Sandeep Potankar. Did I get that right? From Marlboro?
Yeah.
How'd I do, Sandeep? How'd I do the name? Give a mic. You're kind of damning me with faint praise with that. It was fine. Okay, in from Marlboro. Nice to see you again. Do you want to ask? You got a question on wages and unskilled workers?
Yes. So, as we all know, unskilled workers were a big part of the deciding factor in the presidential election. So, what will you do to ensure that our state has employment opportunities with livable wages for both skilled and unskilled workers?
Great question. Let's hear it from Sandeep. I mentioned earlier that I lived in Germany twice, once as a private citizen and once as the United States ambassador. And if you don't follow Germany, I don't know why you know this, but Germany is outstanding at what we would call the vocational technical stuff. They're sort of world-class leaders. We're still good at it in pockets, but guess what? When the manufacturing base in your economy shrinks, as it has done so dramatically in our country, you tend to have a shrinkage of the educational paths that have led to the training of the workers who have succeeded in those manufacturing industries. And that's what you've seen in America. In Germany, they have kept a hold of their manufacturing base. They've lost some, but they've kept a hold of it well. It's sort of the secret sauce in their economy. I'm a big critic. God bless the service economy. I'm glad we've got successful restaurants and hotels and consulting firms and accounting firms. That's all good. Boy, I'll tell you something. We need to make more stuff. And if we make more stuff, we'll crack. And we're smart about training workers. We'll crack the back of this unskilled labor force walking in right now to a wall. You were with me earlier when we had the private conversation. One of the challenges in sort of getting the country back to where we know it can be and not where we voted as a country a few weeks ago is embracing the fact that just because we have huge disagreements with the guy they elected, many of the folks who voted for him are neighbors of ours who have been left behind, who are not racists, who are not misogynists, who don't want to register people based on religion. But they are left out of the 21st century economy. They've been left behind. The train has left the station and they weren't on it. And so we have to accept that. And one of the ways we do it, I think, is you re-embrace, to the extent you can, the manufacturing culture. Now, are we going to make cars in New Jersey again in our lifetime? I hope so. We'll die trying. I'm not sure we will, to be honest with you. But I mentioned earlier, can we really, honestly, reignite the STEM economy? Which, by the way, you hear that and you think, oh my God, everyone's a PhD. That's not the case. It's up and down the whole food chain of employment. And people at every level are paid really well. I was in Bell Labs a few weeks ago, former Bell Labs down in Holmdel. 7 Nobel laureates work there. But even more importantly, thousands of people work with them at all levels of skill. But skill. And that's what we got to get back. I believe we have to start making more stuff again to really reignite that whole opportunity, that whole option for workers. Let's hear it again for Sutton. Well, I'm sorry again for being lousy. Dan Chulak. I don't have an address for Dan. Everybody's on this side. Hello, Dan. Where are you from?
Old Bridge.
Old Bridge. Nice to meet you. Let's go.
I actually submitted 2 questions.
Yep. Put the microphone right up to your face there.
Okay,
It's up to your face. That didn't sound right. Your mouth.
So I know you have a lot of experience and you've made economics the prime focus of your campaign. So, like Donald Trump, you've donated millions of dollars to your campaign. So I wanted to know, how do we know that you're going to be able to help the people of New Jersey and not rich people on Wall Street?
That's a good question. Let's hear it for Dan. I actually don't know what Donald Trump did with his campaign. I'd be interested to see what the campaign reports say at the end. Let me tell you, the most important part about me is, and I just wish that I had a videotape of my life growing up in the 1960s. We grew up in a house where until I was 9 years old, I was living in the same bedroom as my parents. I had 2 sisters who shared a room. We lived with an aunt. I think it was her house, actually, technically. I hope she invited us in. I had a brother who had to sleep on a pull-out, actually not even a pull-out, on a sofa. My dad didn't get out of high school. My mom did, as I mentioned earlier. He went from job to job. He was a paid pallbearer. Managed a liquor store for some folks who owned it. My mom was a secretary. We worked at a garment factory. That's the most, other than raising 4 kids, sort of the bookend experiences in my life are the most important in my life. And that's what drives me. That's the passion. That's the world I grew up in. And the sad part, I think about, I don't know why I hang my hat on this, but I think about when I was 10 years old, which for me was 1967, which is frightening. And I was thinking, we had no money. Not 2 nickels to rub together. We were happy. There's no question we were happy. But we had no money. And that was the source of tension in our family. But we were growing up in John Kennedy's America and Lyndon Johnson's America. And it was an America, as a 10-year-old, where you sort of knew the deal was if you worked hard and you went to school, you got good grades, you stayed out of trouble, you'd do better than your mom and dad did. That was sort of something you put in the bank. And one of the driving reasons that I have embarked on this mission is I don't think that 10-year-old kid in the family that's hanging in the middle class by a thread, whose parents are probably comfortably called working poor, that's my word. I don't know that kid today can put that deal in the bank. And if you said to me, what's the singular reason, what's the singular chapter in your life that burns deeply in you, that gives you the passion to be here tonight? And what is the one fact today that exists in this state that drives you? That's the combination. The passion of how I grew up and the fact that there were kids like that in this state. I mentioned earlier about making college more affordable and accessible. You know what the real tragedy in this state? It's enough of a tragedy that a lot of you will graduate with $30,000+, if not more, of debt. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. But an even bigger tragedy is there are kids who want to be in this room tonight, who are in high school aspiring to be here, or maybe they've graduated, who have got the grades, they've got the passion, they've got the interest and the work ethic, but they're not in this room tonight for one reason and one reason only. They can't find the money to go to college. And this is 2016 in New Jersey, in the United States of America. That should be, and it will be under my watch, completely and totally unacceptable. Nice question, Dan. I appreciate it. Two more. I got Justin Schomburg. Justin, I know you, buddy. Where are you? You're right behind me. Nice job. Can someone take a picture of Justin? Rutgers student body president, man. Look at the Facebook stream.
You're on Facebook too, right?
I'm on Facebook too, yeah. Okay, you got a question on higher education, which I keep coming back to, so we may fire away. Do you need this or not?
No, I'm good.
Okay. There you go.
So first of all, I just want to thank you for coming out tonight. I mean, your passion for New Jersey is evident, and students are interested to see your message. Obviously, you can see that just in the room around you.
Thank you, man. You're the boss, I proved that.
So one of, or the biggest issue that we see as a student government at Rutgers is college affordability. You know it's an issue. Everyone in this room knows it's an issue. Over the past decade alone, funding for higher education across the state of New Jersey has been cut consistently. I mean, just at do like Rutgers, as a case example, this past year, we received $375 million from the state of New Jersey, an all-time low.
Yep.
When we're a billion-dollar institution with billions of dollars of expenses, and the funding from the state of New Jersey is supposed to be one of our main revenue sources, and now it's at $375 million, the burden to pay for all of those expenses falls on the backs of the students, the hundreds of students who are sitting around here, the tens of thousands of students sitting at this university, and the hundreds of thousands of students across the state of New Jersey. My question is not just about college affordability, but it's about taking the burden off of our backs and reallocating it back into the state's budget. So what will you do specifically about state funding for higher education and for Rutgers University?
Let's hear it for Justin. Somewhat related, but I admit to you this won't sound related, but trust me, it is related. We talked about a phenomenon earlier before we came out tonight, and that is count me completely open-minded, and I think it'd be actually a very smart thing to have a voting member from the student body on the Board of Governors of Rutgers University. Because it is related, right? Yeah. I mentioned this earlier, so I kind of don't want to repeat myself, but bless you. I mentioned that a lot of states cut funding to higher ed in the recession, and that was probably, as painful and as odious as that is, it was probably something that we should have expected. There are very few that continue to do that, and we are one of them. Now, one level, the state's budget's $35 billion, a lot of zeros, thick book, your eyes gloss over. But you know what? It screams out your priorities. Just as I mentioned earlier about funding public education, if you underfund the only formula that's ever been blessed in the state of New Jersey by $8 billion, as my son Sam, who's 13, would say that's billion with a B, over 7 years, you're making a statement about what your priorities are. And the same would go to funding higher ed. So the simple answer is, you've got to do what it takes to find the money. And it's a twofer. This is so important, I'm getting on my knees. It's a twofer, because at one level, it should make its way to you all, so that you have, the field is a little bit more leveled. And I don't think, by the way, you can turn this around overnight. I'm not going to overstate or overpromise here. But that you get this a little bit more leveled and make it a fairer deal for students. But secondly, it's this comment I made earlier. Whatever you can do to invest in research and development, probably of any kind, I was talking about STEM, but you probably said that to be any kind, is a huge payoff. People will say it's sort of in the $7 to $1 range in STEM. I'm not sure it's that way everywhere, in every field. And those are 2-for-1s, right? So that's kind of, by the way, if you look at the renaissance of this community, New Brunswick, over the course of the last 30-odd years, under only 2 mayors, John Lynch and Jim Cahill, working with Rutgers, working with the state, working with corporate citizens like Johnson & Johnson, right? Working with the local hospitals. This is a great test case. It's a great success story in this state. We need more of it. We need more here, but we need more of it around the state. It's got to be what we're committed to. Justin, let's hear from you, buddy. Thanks for it. Last question. Forgot the music. We got to throw the music. Okay. Daniel Bianchini. Did I get it right, Daniel, from Highland Park? Everybody who's asked a question, come over here. They want to see. Is this Daniel? Is this on purpose? Okay. Hey, Daniel. Hey. How are you, sir? Don't worry. You got a question about the Democratic Party.
So, after this election, it became clear that the Democratic Party is struggling nationwide. Republicans will soon have control of all three federal branches of government. In 2017, there will be 15 Democratic governors and 13 Democratic state legislatures. As governor, how will you keep our state blue and push blue values in the midst of a wave of red nationwide?
Good question. Let's hear from Daniel. Yeah, this is I mentioned earlier, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts. Those are some pretty sobering facts. So we've had, even during a successful presidency, we've paid a big down ballot price as a party nationally. New Jersey's largely been exempt from this. We even picked up a congressional seat in this election. So our delegation went from 6-6 to 7-5. So as a proud Democrat, it sounds like you are as well. That's good for the home team. We had very few of those pickups nationally. We did not take control of the Senate. We won very few House seats. We are the lowest representation of governors since 1922. We've had historical state legislators, as you point out very, very well, articulately down ballot losses. I'll be brief in my answer. As it relates to me, I'll do everything I can. God willing, I got to win first. That's a minor detail, and I don't take that lightly. I mean, we literally take this one vote at a time. We're not taking anything for granted. We are the outsiders. We're the retail guys. We're in the streets, and we're counting this one vote at a time. And we'll continue to do that. But I'll stand, if I'm fortunate enough to get there, I'll stand for what I've always stood for, which is that I'm a big party guy. I'm a big party infrastructure guy. I believe in the unsexy stuff, the wiring and the plumbing, the shoe leather. We get too romantic in our party. We get too caught up, particularly at the top of the ballot. And we don't do the stuff you need to do down ballot. I hope that's in my own small way, again, if I'm fortunate enough to get there, that's an impression that I can imprint in our party in New Jersey with the help of you all, but maybe even make New Jersey a model that states could look to and say, you know what, they're doing it right there. They're doing their politics and they're governing right. That would be a great objective to have. I think more relevantly, because I'm not sure what I'm going to do to be able to impact Missouri or Indiana or Arizona or you name it, or even Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania, we need a rockin', vibrant national party with full-time leadership. I almost kind of don't care who the leader is, as long as they're full-time and they're committed to all 50 states. And that's why I went to work alongside Howard Dean. He was committed. He's frankly, for all the reputation of Howard Dean, not a real lefty as an ideological matter, a proud Democrat, but more importantly, he was a big party infrastructure guy. And that's our gal. We just need a leader who's full-time, who's committed to that, and who's committed to making sure we're in business every day of a 4-year cycle and in every state in the union. And we take every point in the ballot seriously and every vote seriously. Those are the criteria we should apply to our next leader. And I believe if we get whoever that leader is, we will get back faster than we may think at the moment. But this is pretty grim at the moment. We get a hole to climb out of. I believe we will, but we have a hole to climb out of. Okay, as opposed to playing the music, I guess I've got to do a quick poll here. You ready? Okay, I'm giving you 5 choices. This is important. I don't know if you want to raise your hand with the winner. Is that all right, Jen? You okay with it? Okay. 5 choices. What's your favorite of these songs? This is important. You've got Starboy by The Weeknd, Closer by the Chainsmokers, Okay Easy, 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars, Easy, Let Me Love You by Justin Bieber, I know, and I don't want to tip my hand, but Black Beatles by Ray Shrummer. Okay? Those are my choices. You ready? Let's hear it. Maybe we'll do like a voice vote. Let's hear it for Starboy by The Weeknd. We got one hand and a couple of yelps over here. Anybody? Okay, Closer by the Chainsmokers. You know, Bruce Springsteen would say right now, is anybody alive out there? 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars. Whoa, the preliminary round, I didn't think he was going to do well. Okay, Let Me Love You by the Beefster. Literally one person. What's your name? What is it? Chloe? Do we have a microphone? Chloe, just give us one verse.
My mom's is a really bad singer.
How about just maybe speak a line?
Alright, Let Me Love You.
Just checking my notes, I believe that's the name of the song.
That's like the only line also.
You can't take that. Listen, we're going to have Chloe walk out of here with the microphone in her hand. We're going to do it. Where are you from, Chloe?
Stockton, New Jersey.
Stockton, New Jersey. Okay, let's hear it out for Chloe. All right. You good? 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars. Black Beatles by Ray Shrummer. I'm with Paul McCartney. Black Beatles wins. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you for hearing us out. Murphy4MJ.com. Go Rutgers. Go Scarlet Knights. Thank you so much for having me.